Should be rolling. Alrighty. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Basketball Maestros podcast. Thank you for joining us today. So times have changed. We're now into the second round of things in the NBA playoffs, and we have a lot to talk about. We're going to be going over some of the teams that are in Cancun currently and kind of just talk about their outlook moving forward, if they have to make any necessary changes to be more successful heading into next season. And then we'll be going over the second round matchups as well. So let's waste no time in getting right into it. We got a big firing here today. Coach Bud got canned, which to me personally was a little bit expected just to the degree game 5 went to. And then we started to hear stuff about Coach Bud's unfortunate passing of his brother come out, and he was dedicated enough to, it sounds bad, but to put it to the side and coach this team in this first round matchup against the Miami Heat. Obviously, it did not pan out, and they struggled mightily and ended up just being a very disappointing season and getting eliminated in the first round. And despite all the stuff that has come out about this Bucks team, I think this firing was kind of expected in a sense. You can think that the firing was a little bit unfair due to the circumstances going on in his personal life, but just after a beyond disappointing season to a team that I had making it to the finals, you kind of expect there to be some sort of collateral after the way they went out in game 5. So even though it's really awful to hear about the loss of Coach Bud's brother, and it's really, really, really sucky, and to get fired on top of that is also, I can't imagine the headspace he's in at this point, but did lead the Bucks to championship, was able to make the Bucks a powerhouse in the East for a couple of years there, but despite some disappointment sprinkled in there, he was able to bring home a championship for Milwaukee in like 50-something years. So and I saw a tweet from Bobby Marks, I believe. Steve Kerr is the last championship head coach standing in the last 4 years. Nick Nurse getting canned, Budenholzer, and Frank Vogel. So a lot of turnaround from the championship winners the past couple of seasons, but interested to see who the candidates are for this Bucks job. Wouldn't be surprised if Nick Nurse is kind of in that running. He still hasn't found a new job yet. So the Bucks, a team with a lot of question marks. Another question being Coach Bud, and they have Chris Middleton and Brooke Lopez, two pending free agents, and we'll see if they're able to retain them. But yeah, the Bucks' disappointing season continues to kind of pile on here, and Budenholzer unfortunately got a short end of the stick here. But then again, he did have some lapses. But of course, it's a lot more justified with the stuff going on in his personal life. But yeah, overall, the Bucks just a lot of question marks heading into this offseason, and finding a new coach is going to be one of them moving forward.
Yeah, so I think that at the beginning of this, kind of stint with Budenholzer, I think, things are going really well. Obviously, you saw the kind of emergence with Giannis, and he, I think, did a great job with kind of getting this team to a championship level. So props to him for that. Secondly, just prayers to him, man. Like, it's definitely rough to lose someone like that and then have to go out and coach and be at your best. So hope he's doing okay. Like you said, that really doesn't help your mental in any capacity. It doesn't make you feel better at all. But I still do think that this is very warranted, regardless of those things. Um, I just think that there were a lot of things that, regardless of what your headspace kind of is, it's like taking timeouts. I think that was probably like the biggest thing that I noticed, where Jimmy's going off or the Heat are going on a run, and you're just sitting there like Darvin Ham with your hands in your pockets, not doing anything. Like, I think he was just a little too. I don't even know what it was realistically, because like in those moments, I think as a coach and as a leader, like you got to take a timeout and like kind of stop momentum. I think everyone kind of understands that. And for some reason, he just kind of let his team out there and just let them like just kind of battle it out and just kind of, let it happen. And it really didn't work out. And obviously the Heat advanced, and that big, what was it, double digit lead they blew in game 5 was, I think, played a bigger part in this happening. Because I truly thought, I think you did too, that this team was going to make a comeback. I thought that this is the most likely 3-1 comeback that we were going to see this year. And I was thinking, I was like, middle of that game, I saw the score, and I'm like, oh yeah, Bucks, here it comes. Like they're going to start coming back. And then, you have a big collapse like that in the fourth quarter. And, I think any coach's job, no one is safe. And I think another big part was just like no adjustments. I know Giannis said it, that he wanted to be on Jimmy more. And realistically, like, I feel like all you got to do is, I mean, I'm not a coach, believe me, like not close to one, but I feel like you just double Jimmy, and, that's just the most simple solution. And then you just let anyone else beat you. He didn't do that. And now these are the consequences. For the Bucks, definitely a interesting time. Not really a young roster. Now you kind of got to go find a head coach. You got 2 big free agents coming up this year, and Nick Nurse, I think, is a good candidate. I know Frank Vogel is still looking for a job. I don't know how possible that would be, but I never thought he was that bad of a coach. And yeah, I think the Bucks, as long as you have Giannis, I think you'll still obviously be competitive. But with a couple teams, I think rising in the East, I think their championship window might be closing fast if they don't bring some key guys back. And I think they just need to get younger and just kind of retool the roster a little bit.
And then moving on to our next segment, we'll start off with the Bucks to kind of just wrap up our thoughts there. But we've got a good amount of some Cancun tourists going on. Starting off the Bucks, of course, as I mentioned, they have Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, 2 guys, 2 vital pieces to this team moving forward. And I believe Brook Lopez is just a straight-up free agent, and Chris Middleton as a player option, which I assume he's probably going to decline. But I guess the question poses, do you bring back Chris Middleton? Do you bring back Brook Lopez? I feel like those are just undeniable yeses at this point. But then again, they are not getting any younger. I believe Middleton's 34 and Brook is 35, I want to say. So I'm sure they're going to want to be compensated for what they've done for this team. Brook Lopez had arguably probably his best season just in terms of what he did on both sides of the ball, and especially being up there in conversations of Defensive Player of the Year. So I'm sure he's probably going to want a good amount of money. And same with Chris Middleton. He's been that solidified number 2 guy alongside Giannis for a couple of seasons now. Health has obviously been a pretty big concern and will probably continue to be one. Obviously, they missed him in the conference finals last year, and he was able to play throughout the postseason, albeit very short postseason for them. But I'm sure Middleton and Lopez are probably going to want somewhere in the low to mid 30s, I would say. And personally, if I'm the Bucks, you probably have to suck up and pay that price if you want to keep this championship window open. Yeah, it's not going to look pretty, say in like 2-3 years when they're aging and probably not as effective as they were a couple seasons ago, and now they're looking like pretty ugly contracts. But I think if you're Milwaukee here, you're just trying to extend your window to at least try to get one or two more chances at a championship. And I think that's just kind of the price you have to pay. Because if you let Middleton or Brook go, I think those are pretty two key pieces to just let walk for nothing. And that could rub Giannis the wrong way and just be a snowball effect moving forward. So I think, yeah, it's probably not going to look pretty to pay those two guys a good chunk of change moving forward. But then again, the Bucks want to compete for championships and want to stay competitive, and I think you just have to pay those two guys. And again, we've mentioned that this free agency class is far from strong at all. So I think you're kind of just backing yourself up in a corner here and have to pay Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez moving forward just to keep your chances alive to hopefully get another championship or at least get back to the finals after this very disappointing year.
It's very hard for this team, in my opinion, because I think you do have to suck it up. I think bringing back Brook is honestly, I would prioritize that more personally. I mean, there are some. It's going to be hard to replace Middleton regardless, but I mean, Jeremy Grant's a free agent. I think Harrison Barnes is too, and I know that those aren't like, let's be honest, like the all-star kind of level players that Chris Middleton is, but like you have said, health is a big issue with him right now, and he is aging, so it's just how available would he be? But this is kind of a tough offseason, like I've said, for this team because I don't know what their draft capital looks like. Obviously, it's probably not crazy because they're a good team. And, you know, you're not going to get a crazy, unless you kind of luck out and, you know, you just have a good scouting team. But, like, where do you go in free agency? I mean, you can, you can go after Dylan Brooks or
No thanks.
Draymond Green. But, I mean, players like that. But this class is not strong unless you can kind of take some chances on some young guys, but it's going to be tough to retool this roster. I think they just suck it up and they pay that money. And then, you know, I don't know what their cap looks like there, but, you know, they're probably going to most likely run it back with the same squad with a new coaching system and just kind of see where it goes there. But, man, it was a tough year to lose so early because this team was prime to make a finals run. I think I had them winning the finals. I'm not gonna lie. I think a lot of people had them winning the finals. So it is tough, and it's just such a big step back because Giannis isn't getting any younger. Brook and Middleton aren't younger. Drew isn't a young guy, and it's going to be dark days in Milwaukee soon. Realistically, that's just how I see it. So that front office better get to work.
Yeah, I think more than ever, this kind of set a harsh reality for this Milwaukee team. Obviously, you start to notice the aging stars and just the kind of stuff that comes with trying to keep your championship window open. You're kind of seeing it with the Suns, with Chris Paul. I think he came there on an expiring deal, I want to say, and then they re-signed him. They give them a boatload of money, kind of save themselves on the back end. I think they had some non-guaranteed stuff in the last year or two of his contract, I want to say. So maybe the Bucks do something like Phoenix did, so where they give Brook or Chris or both of them boatload of money up front and then kind of just protect themselves in the back end of the deal. Just so they're not buying themselves like 2-3 years down the road where they're trying to offload those two guys and potentially just if they're just not being productive at all, and you're getting like basically dimes on the dollar trying to get them off. So again, a lot of question marks for this Bucks team, kind of just trying to build a fresh slate moving forward, and hopefully they're able to do that. And then moving on to another disappointing team in the postseason, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were eliminated in a 5-game series against the New York Knicks, where quite frankly, the Knicks just ran them out of the gym. I believe we kind of touched on that series as a whole in our last episode, I want to say, or maybe the one before, but kind of just overviewing this offseason for the Cavaliers. I think the question mark that they have to answer is obviously the three spot. That was kind of their weakness, and everyone can kind of see that from game one to all the way to the postseason. It's just JB Bickerstaff was kind of just searching for answers from that 3 spot. Talked about Danny Green getting minutes, Osman. I think Lamar Stevens even got some run. Karras, of course, being that one guy that they kind of relied upon for scoring. And then you had Okoro, who wasn't necessarily the strongest. So I think that's the biggest question for them. Now, again, the free agency class sucks. So I don't know how you're going to be able to fill that void. And if you want to trade for somebody like, for example, OG Anunoby, you don't have the capital for that based off what you did to get Donovan Mitchell in the door. So I'm not sure if they're going to be able to answer the questions they need. Obviously, you like to see Evan Mobley kind of be stronger and just have a better frame moving forward, because he's still obviously very young, very lean and skinny. So that kind of got exposed. He was kind of just getting thrown around in the Knicks series. So obviously he's going to continue to evolve. Jared Allen, his infamous quote saying he didn't expect the lights to be that bright. So obviously he had a pretty disappointing postseason as well. So I think as the Cavs moving forward, you just kind of hope this team continues to gel and maybe be able to find a slight upgrade for the 3 spot. Maybe like a little older veteran, like a 3-and-D kind of guy. But yeah, I don't know how you're going to be able to fix that spot with just all the money you're going to have tied up to that core with Garland, Donovan, Evan Mobley when that time comes. So for the Cavs, obviously you would love to improve that small forward spot. It probably won't be easy, but I'm interested to see what kind of avenues they take to address the needs moving forward. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for them is figuring out that 3 spot for them moving forward and just having that consistent production from that spot moving forward.
Yeah, I think with that, and I think they really need to address their bench. They are not a deep team at all, and we really did see that in the playoffs. Besides the starting lineup and besides Donovan and Garland, there's just no one that I think Bickerstaff and the team could kind of just fall back on. There was Karras a couple times throughout that series, but you really couldn't rely on him because realistically, Karras is very, very inconsistent. So yeah, these are the biggest questions, I think. I mean, some potential guys. I'm not a cap guy. I don't really pay attention to cap that much. So let's be honest. I have no idea if these things are possible. But I saw a report that Christian Wood doesn't want to come back to Dallas. I think that one would be interesting for him to come off the bench. For the 3 spot, I mean, this free agency class is really bad. But I mean, Harrison Barnes is a free agent. I know Kings fans probably do not want him back. You can take a look at that. Who knows what his market is? And I mean, realistically, I think that's probably 2 guys that they should look at. I know Jeremy Grant's a free agent, but I don't know if they have the cap for that. and just kind of throughout the draft and like trade targets, I think OG is a great fit for this team. I think if they can somehow find a way to get him on the squad, I think that'd be really good. Maybe even if they made a run at Chris Middleton. We were just talking about him in Milwaukee. They probably don't have the cap space for that. I don't know if they do, but if they're able to find a way, I know we just said that he's an aging guy, but I think he would fit really well on this team. He's a veteran presence, a guy who's been to that championship level, been to the NBA Finals, and has won a championship. So he knows what it takes. He's been around a guy like Giannis, so I think he's a good like leader for that team, for that roster, and I just think this team will come back next year, and I think they'll be ready. I think that they'll kind of understand what it takes now. I'm really excited to see Evan Mobley. I really hope he puts on some weight this offseason. I think he will. I think he kind of realized this series that he's just simply not big enough. So I'm interested to see where his development goes and where he, as a player, kind of takes his game. But yeah, I think that it's a very disappointing end of the season, but I think that there are some positives that the Cavs should definitely take from the season.
And moving on to the Brooklyn Nets, getting eliminated, getting swept by the Philadelphia 76ers this first round. And obviously, this team is not on the same level as the Cavs and the Bucks, as they're kind of retooling after their roller coaster of a season with all the turnaround that they had in like a week's time. So I think for short, you start with building around Mikal. That's number one. And if for some reason you want to move off of him and try to find another like solidified building block, you better get your money's worth due to the season he had. But I think if you're Brooklyn, you start off with building around Mikal. And a very close second, what the hell are you going to do with Ben Simmons? A guy that, quite honestly, I forgot about this whole second half of the season when he was kind of just shut down and kind of in the dark towards the end of the season and their postseason run. I would see him on the bench and I'd be like, oh, yeah, he's still there. So a guy who's going to be making $34 million next year, the top guy in terms of salary, and a guy who is getting paid that amount of money who averages 9 points. So you got to explore all avenues for Ben Simmons. Personally, I'd give Ben Simmons one more year, but this offseason I am definitely not – I'm turning over every stone that I can to figure out what kind of avenues I have to get Ben Simmons off my team. But Jacque Vaughn's going to have to figure out how to use him as well if he does return. But I'm trying to call up other teams just to figure out if there's any possible way to offload him. I think it's probably for the best. But Cameron Johnson's a free agent as well. I'm sure a lot of teams are going to have interest in him and try to throw him some money to lure him away from Brooklyn. But I believe he is a restricted free agent, so Brooklyn can protect themselves a little bit and be able to bring him back, which I think would be smart, just to have Mikal and Cam Johnson moving forward. And then you just kind of have to look at your veteran pieces like Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith. You have Joe Harris there as well. I believe Seth Curry's a free agent. I don't expect him to stay there either. So I think Joe Harris might have one more year left. I'll fact check it. But for the Nets, I think you just kind of solidify your direction this offseason, because it was kind of like I wouldn't say a mess, but like a little bit congested, I guess, in a way, where you just kind of had some young guys and then with a bunch of veterans thrown in there. So I think if you're Sean Marks in the front office, you kind of look at what direction you want to take it. Do you move off like guys like O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, and try to flip them for young assets or picks? I think that's something you kind of have to consider. But Yeah, I think for the Nets, you just kind of embrace the rebuild. I would flip the veteran pieces to get some more picks because we all know Brooklyn needs them for all the win now moves that they pulled off with KD and Kyrie there. So, um, yeah, you made the playoffs, but that was kind of due to the team you had prior to the deadline. So I think this year you kind of solidify that you're going to be a rebuilding team, probably towards the latter half of the Eastern Conference, and kind of just start building up from there.
Yeah, I think that they need to keep this team young. I think there's like kind of two ways that you can do it. I think you either trade away guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie, and kind of like Royce O'Neal, kind of guys like that, where they're just role players, and you can maybe they're definitely going to be contending teams and general managers that are definitely going to be looking for pieces like that. I think you definitely could just kind of see what's up and see what you can get for them. Ben Simmons is definitely interesting. I think it is fair to give him another year, but if he starts to like um kind of just act up or just kind of quit, like kind of like I feel like he did this year, I think you just shut him down again and then you just kind of don't even like bother with him, honestly. Um I think that this team, like I think we mentioned in a previous one, I think they definitely should call Atlanta and just see what it would take to get a guy like Trae Young. I think that the Trae Young and um, McHale duo would be simply amazing. If you keep Claxton, that roster is still young. If you can keep Cam Johnson, you're definitely looking at a kind of a team that I think will be dangerous in a couple of years. Um, another team that they could hit up, but it's not really a young guys. They definitely could see what it take to get Dame. Depending if I feel like this year might be the year that he finally gets traded. I just feel like the way that he's talking, the way that the reports are coming out, I feel like it kind of has to happen. But those are some things that they could do trade wise. But you just got to find a way to get some talent around McHale and get some big guys because when you're in a conference with Joel Embiid, it's definitely going to be hard to kind of go small against guys like that. So it did work out, I would say, but if you're going to want to beat teams like the Sixers in the East, you're definitely going to have to kind of gear up for that a little bit. So whatever Nick Claxton has to do to make sure that he just doesn't get bullied basically the entire time, he should try to do that this offseason. But this team is definitely has a bright future, and I think that they can get Cam Johnson back if they can flip some guys for young pieces and maybe trade for like a guy like Trae Young. I think that they're in a good spot to be like a top 5 seed next year.
So your team like try to find avenues to stay competitive in terms of rebuild.
Yeah, I think that when McHale's kind of like this, playing like this, you don't want to waste it. You
Mm-hmm.
want to just make sure that you can retool, kind of rebuild a little bit, but make sure that we're still able to win.
Makes sense. Moving on, the Atlanta Hawks. We kind of gave a little spiel about them in previous episode. We'll kind of make this one quick. We'll just have one question: Is it time to blow it up and fire up the phone calls to trade Trae Young?
I think yes. You did steal 2 games off of the Celtics, but to be granted, I think the Celtics just played really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when did the Celtics ever give up like above 100 and like 20 points that consistently? I think it just took a lot of hero like stuff from Trey. But like, how much better can you get realistically? Like, can you really like come back next year and beat a team like the Celtics, beat a team like the Bucks, depending what happens, beat a team like the 76ers and the Nets and Cavs? Like, can you really stay that competitive? I think no. So I think that you blow it up still, even after stealing 2 games.
Yeah, and looking at their free agents, it's basically their whole team's still under contract. So if they are going to make some moves, it's got to be through trades. So I think you very well look at Trey and DeJounte, and you ask yourself as a front office if you really want that to be your core moving forward. Personally, I would say no, but um, I would completely understand if Atlanta is still a little hesitant on looking for offers for Trae Young, but I think it's definitely a valid question to ask at this point in time. I think DeJounte is going to be in a contract year heading into next year, so definitely have some questions, but um, definitely interested to see if they go team blow it up and see if they can just start over in a sense. And moving on, swinging out west to the Minnesota Timberwolves, um, losing to the one-seeded Denver Nuggets, and they're kind of a team that had a roller coaster of a season. Um, Obviously, with the Gobert and Cat situation, um, they decided to go all in, try to speed up the process of being a competitive playoff team and try to raise the ceiling of winning a championship, or at least just being a team that can make it farther in the playoffs than being first round exits. And you can argue that decision was for better or for worse. That team that they had last year was definitely really solid. And obviously, hindsight 2020, that um, this trade was just not it. And I think you probably get higher seeding with the roster you had last season in terms of this team now. And looking at their free agents, the biggest one being Nas Reed. I think it's probably best for him to kind of just spread his wings and fly. I think he showed definitely the kind of potential he has. And um, even if Minnesota wanted to retain him, I don't think they could. I think some team out there is probably going to give him a good amount of change. So I think Nas Reed is probably good as gone at this point. So they might have to do some backup center shopping. But overall, if you're a Minnesota fan, you're probably not going to see much turnaround coming into next year. You're kind of at a point where you live up to what you did. You suck it up and kind of try to figure it out on the fly, make some changes around the edges. But you have guys that just aren't really significant as free agents. You know, Austin Rivers, Jalen Noel, Luka Garza, Matt Ryan, Nikhil Alexander Walker. So you have kind of just end of the bench kind of guys, but he had Alexander Walker starting at times, but then again, he had McDaniels out for the season. So for Minnesota, I think you kind of just pray that it gets better than this heading into next year, and you kind of just have to live it up for however long this experiment goes on for. So overall, not many changes I envision for this team moving forward.
Yeah, they kind of made themselves non-competitors last year when they decided to do that trade. I just don't see a world where this team makes a move that makes them instantly a competitor, especially in a Western Conference that is just so competitive. They got to figure out something, man. Like the Cat and Gobert on the same time on the floor, it just doesn't work. In my opinion, the spacing is just not it. It's rough, man. This team is rough. I think Nas Reed walks. I think he goes somewhere where he can not be on a team with two, centers that are just kind of clogging up minutes. I saw a report, I think, that they're going to try to build around Ant. They made that they kind of just gave up on that realistically last year after trading for Gobert, because that is the one move that you don't do if you're trying to trade or build around Ant. Mm-hmm. It's just hard, man. This team, I don't think really goes anywhere next season. I think play-in team at best, and it's just going to be the same thing, man, until they can get rid of Gobert.
And then moving on to the Los Angeles Clippers, the two main free agents being Russell Westbrook and Mason Plumlee. Lawrence Frank, I believe that's their GM, said that he wants to keep Russ around. I assume they're probably going to try and keep Plumlee around as well. But I kind of stated my opinions on this team in the previous episode. I'm of team blow it up, but I think the most likely scenario is they're going to run it back for one more year, and then that following summer, Kawhi and PG have player options, and then you kind of just roll with the punches from there. So, even though I think they should definitely make some changes to this roster, maybe a little more drastic than some may think, but it seems like Russ is going to be back. I assume probably a mid-level exception around that range for the Clippers. I saw PG on his podcast saying that they found their point guard. That'll be interesting to see if that bites them in the future. But overall, I think the Clippers are going to stay pat for at least one more full year, even though I don't think anything's going to change. They're going to load manage. They're going to do the full 9 yards again and just follow the same recipe till it fails for the final time. And yeah, Clippers are cursed. It's just going to be the same thing going into next year. But hey, what do I know? But yeah, the Clippers would like them to blow it up, but realistically, don't think they are. They're going to try and run it back, keep their fingers crossed that Kawhi and PG stay healthy, even though it's kind of unlikely. And yeah, I think it's just going to be the same old story. But yeah, the Clippers, again, another make it or break it season. I thought this year was the year, but I guess they're going to give them one more shot at it.
They do. They do. There's nothing you can do with this team, realistically. I mean, I think you just re-sign Westbrook and you go again. You just pray to the Lord up above that we can actually be healthy for an offseason. I truly think that this team is they will be in the finals if they are healthy. They are just that deep. They're that talented with Kawhi and PG play. But they're just not healthy. So, I mean, nothing you can really do. I expect them to be a top 4 seed again next year if they're healthy. It's just all on health, man. That's all it is with this team. Like, they can be in the finals right now. They could be playing Denver right now if they were healthy. But they're not. So, that's literally it for the Clippers. Nothing they have to do. Biggest thing this offseason, re-sign Westbrook and go just load manage Kawhi the entire offseason.
Moving on to the infamous Beam team, obviously for some, a little bit of a disappointing way to go out for the Sacramento Kings. But if you're that fan base, I know it's probably a little hard to handle that Game 7 loss, especially the way that Curry just absolutely went off for 50. But you got your first taste of postseason basketball in over a decade, and you just kind of have to embrace that. And I think for this team, you can definitely expect they're going to be back next year. I think they'll maybe not be as high as a 3 seed next year, but I think they'll for sure be in the mix for 1 through 6, probably 4 through 6 realistically, but definitely for sure for a solidified playoff spot. But not much for this team. I think, yeah, disappointing way to go out, but kind of just the number one thing you look at is Harrison Barnes. Is that the guy you want starting next year? Who knows? But obviously did not help you a lot in this first round series against his former team, the Warriors. So I feel like that's kind of just the big question. So I think you look at Harrison Barnes, talk as a front office. Is this the guy we want starting in our 3 spot? Yes or no? If pick a side, and then kind of just move on from there. Another guy is Trey Lyles, which unexpectedly he was very very good for the Kings in this series. Um, Took Sabonis minutes at times where they went small, and he was kind of just at stretch 5. So I think that's a guy you probably want to keep around as well. But overall for the Sacramento team, you also got a bad break with De'Aaron Fox. Played great in Game 6, but out of 3 games playing with that injury, 2 of them were pretty bad stinkers. But um, get a full season with a healthy Sabonis. I know he dealt with a hand injury basically all year, and then De'Aaron Fox obviously in the first round. So yeah, you got some bad breaks, but I think heading into next year, you just run it back, kind of just regroup with the fellas, and hope your 2 guys are healthy moving forward. Do whatever procedures they have to do heading into next year. But yeah, I think this team is definitely going to be all right in the future. I think they definitely will be back, hopefully stronger heading into next year.
Yeah, definitely a unlucky way to go out. Really, really just Curry dropping 50. That's just such a heartbreaking way to go out. But like you said, there's nothing they really need to do. I don't think there's any crazy guys they have to go after in free agency. Maybe go get another forward because Kings fans probably don't want Harrison Barnes ever in a Kings uniform again. Maybe you can go get a guy like Jeremy Grant or something like that with the money you'd use on Harrison Barnes. That's all I can really see. I think that if Harrison Barnes hits that shot, the Kings are playing the Lakers right now, and everything is different. But we're in a world that didn't happen. Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, I think all come back next year and have great years. I think Fox, if he keeps it up, definitely could be a top 3 guard soon, in my opinion. I think that unless people already have that in their brains, but I think that he's really talented. He showed a lot during this season and this series that he's definitely one of the NBA's like next upcoming talents, if not already one of those top talents. And man, I wish he didn't get hurt, dude, because that he was putting on performances. He was outplaying Curry some games, and it was just truly special to watch. But they shouldn't be disappointed at all, man. Like, I think a lot of people had the Warriors winning this series for a reason, just because of that championship experience. And you saw it a little bit. The Kings, crunch time, messed up a lot. They had a lot of opportunities where they could have closed out games, where they could have kept the game close in some situations, and they just kind of fumbled the bag, man. And it's okay. You run it back again, no worries. And I think this team will be a top 3 seed again next year.
And then moving on to last but certainly not least, the Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously, they had a lot of media attention playing the Lakers in the first round series, but again, I think they're a team that just runs it back. Obviously, you got unlucky with the Steven Adams and Brandon Clark injuries, so you hopefully get those guys back by the start of next year, and you figure out who your next starting small forward is going to be. Dylan Brooks is obviously not going to be there, and I'm very curious to see what teams are interested in him and what kind of contract he's going to get. I've heard some stuff saying that he wanted $25 million in a larger offensive role, but
25.
Yeah, definitely a lot of interesting moments for this Grizzlies team in the playoffs. But despite all that, you figure out your starting small forward spot. Don't know if you'll be able to find anyone worthy this offseason, but maybe you take a look at Luke Kennard potentially, maybe Zaire Williams, who was kind of a promising prospect last year. Maybe you get him some run before you try to look at maybe making another trade or something. But yeah, I think it's similar to the Sacramento Kings. You got a little bit unlucky with some injury luck, but heading into next year, the Grizzlies are again going to be a really good team. Even though they're really young, they're definitely going to be a good regular season team again. So you run it back, head into the postseason again with hopefully a full squad, and kind of just see the full potential of this team moving forward.
They just got to mature, man. Like,
Yeah.
It's the most simple thing. It's like the Clippers and the Kings. You're just running it back again. You've already proven that you can win in a Western Conference that is very tough, but you just got to prime yourself better for the playoffs or compose yourself better for the playoffs. Ja needs to not do what he did this year, to be gone from the team for a month. I think Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bane are just some absolutely crazy players. Man, it is just very unfortunate. I think they also need to go get a real 3-and-D guy. That is just – if Dylan Brooks just shoots like 40 to 35%, like they probably make that a 7-game series, and he doesn't. And that's kind of the result. But this team's talented. We'll see what happens. I think that they'll probably – I don't think they'll be a top 2 seed next year. I think they'll still be like in the top 5 range, but it's just rough, man. You just got to run it back and just pray that we, actually grow up in this league and stop acting like bozos.
All right, so did a little Cancun visiting. Now moving on to the second round of the NBA playoffs. We got some pretty good series panning out so far. We'll start. We'll stay west. We'll start with the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets. Currently, the Denver Nuggets are up 2-0 on the Phoenix Suns. And to say the least, or I should say 2 words, Nikola Jokic. He's just been just the 2-time MVP. Arguably could have been 3-time MVP. However you fare on the MVP scale. But regardless, he's definitely showing what he can do, just absolutely dogging the Phoenix Suns defense. Jamal Murray, he struggled in game 2, but he made some pretty crucial shots in the fourth quarter. And KCP has been huge for them. I believe he was, 4 for 4 in game 2 from 3. So just overall, you're starting to see the depth of this Denver Nuggets team. I know towards the end of the regular season, I was a little skeptical of how to judge this Denver Nuggets team, but clearly I was pretty much underestimating them. I think when you stack them up against a team like the Phoenix Suns, where their depth is just not nearly up to par as the Denver Nuggets, you start to notice the true ceiling of this Nuggets team. So I think overall, Denver Nuggets should be able to take care of this series. If they're able to win one in Phoenix, I think this series is probably over. But to the Phoenix Suns side of things, I think you just kind of see 2 tails or 2 different teams. The Nuggets are a more high-powered 3-point shooting offense, and the Suns are more of a team that operates in the mid-range. You have KD and Book, and now another postseason, another CP3 injury. He's out for game 3 through 5 at the least, I want to say. So Phoenix definitely has their back up against the walls, especially with just kind of the expectations they had heading into this KD era. Uh, I was always a little skeptical of their bench depth, and it's starting to show now. They just have not been able to get anything outside of the starting five, and it's just kind of expected at this point. But overall, I think the Nuggets should be able to handle the series. Wouldn't surprise me if it's in 5, but could be in 6 as well. But overall, I just through 2 games, I don't see a world, or I should say that I don't see a reason why I should still feel confident in the Phoenix Suns to kind of just steal the series heading into a 0-2 deficit, swinging back to Phoenix.
I'll admit when I'm wrong. Usually, it's just hard when you're going into the postseason and you kind of go on a late season, like just a late season kind of skid. That makes sense. When you're just kind of losing to bottom feeders in the league, it does make people probably skeptical what's about to happen. But man, this Nuggets team is definitely showing where they're the one seed in the West. It's definitely just hard when you have KD shooting like 10 for I forgot what he shot in game 2, but when you're shooting really bad and your star player that you gave up everything for isn't shooting well, it's just this is going to be the result, man. I don't see a world where, unless Phoenix wins both these games in Phoenix, the series is likely over. And man, I think with the way the Nuggets are playing right now, they are probably finals bound, depending on who they go against in the Western Conference Finals. But they look really hard to stop. That depth is showing, and this is the results of building a full team. This is the results of actually constructing a roster that is deep and is not just, 2 superstars and just kind of, all right, just we'll have our superstars carry us, because that's what the Suns tried to do, and it's just not working out. So definitely going to be an interesting offseason for the Suns if they do lose in 4 or 5.
KD shot 10 of 27. Yeah, Torrey Craig with a goose egg. You had Cameron Payne, 1 for 7. You had Damian Lee, 0 for 5 in 25 minutes. So overall, yeah, not getting much of anything from the bench. But yeah, Nuggets looking real scary. Potentially going to the conference finals. Moving on to the next one. Lakers versus Warriors, a very interesting series. Obviously, a lot of media attention surrounding this one. Lakers stole game 1, were able to survive a 3-point barrage from the Golden State Warriors. You had 6 threes each from Steph, Clay, and Poole. The infamous Jordan Poole shot at the end of the game to potentially tie the game. So overall, the Lakers were just able to just stay the course. Obviously, free throws were a big thing for them, shooting 29. And they were just able to really get AD going, 30 and 23. And, yeah, it was kind of just the AD game at that point. The Warriors really didn't have any answers. The Lakers held Steph in check for the most part. Clay was hot in the first half and then kind of cooled off in the second half. But game 2 was just kind of a complete flip of the script. The Warriors, again, dropped 20-plus threes, and you kind of see the result of that. You get absolutely smoked off the court. AD just cannot have 2 good games in a row. It was just, frankly, a no-show in this one. LeBron, he had the LeBron game in a sense, if you want to call it that. He was actually shooting the ball well today, but didn't result in the win. You have Rui, who, again, continues to impress this postseason. I believe he hit 4 threes. So Lakers shot better from three this game, but just their defense was a complete letdown. The Warriors went small, and that proved to be a really big deciding factor in this series. So Lakers definitely have a lot of adjustments to make up, um, especially to figure out how they're going to maneuver around small ball with AD out there. So heading into game three, it's going to be a big one. Series shifting back to LA. Hopefully the Lakers are able to protect home court, but it's going to be for sure big 2 games in the Crips. So yeah, not much to take from this series. You just kind of expect the Warriors to be the got it. And I hate this saying, but you expect the Warriors to beat the Warriors with their in terms of just their offense. Obviously, if you're a Laker fan, you kind of hope that in Game 3 they don't make 23s again, which I thought that wasn't going to be the case in Game 2, but it was. So, yeah, for the Warriors, you just hope that your offense is just able to separate themselves from the Lakers, and then for the Lakers, you just hope your defense keeps you in these kind of games. But so far, it's been a tale of 2 games. So Game 3 is definitely going to be interesting, and I'm interested to see. I expect it to probably be a lot closer than that 30-point blowout heading into Game 3.
The Lakers just cannot waste a LeBron performance where he's actually not shooting terribly and he actually looks like LeBron. This is a perfect opportunity to go up 2-0. LeBron came out, Rui shot well, and we just wasted it. And I knew that we were going to lose 1 in Golden State. It just always sucks to see it how it happens. But we really cannot afford these AD games, man. It just needs to become a consistent. I'm not even asking anymore at this point for 25 a night, man. Just give me 20. That's all I'm asking for, Anthony. Not asking for a lot, but like you said, that we were gonna lose 1. Game 6, Clay showed up tonight. Frankly, I don't think Clay shoots like that realistically again in LA. I think Clay's just been really inconsistent this year, and I think that he probably won't shoot that good until Game 5 or something like that. But I think we probably split it 1-1 in LA too. I think Steph's bound to go off in Los Angeles, which is just something we're gonna have to live with. But it's hard, man. It's you just gotta live. I just hate saying it. You just gotta accept the three, man. You gotta accept it. It's gonna happen. I knew going into this series I was gonna be tested mentally, and it's just getting annoying just seeing the three 21. It's 21 threes, man. God. I think the Lakers are still fine though. It's honestly effort as well. You could just tell tonight, D'Lo, Austin, and AD just were not feeling it. I don't know what it is or what needs to change, but it's just inconsistency issues. And I expect us to go and win Game 3, but this series is just annoying to watch because I just hate seeing them chuck up threes. And I'm not even gonna get annoyed. I just hate the Warriors.
Yeah, Game 3 is definitely going to be for sure test mentally. If I see the Lakers go down 2-1, I'll probably be very upset. But
yes,
Lakers in 5 for now until that
Lakers
changes. Then it'll be Lakers in 6.
Lakers in 6.
Yeah, so I'll keep shifting my expectations. But yeah, this series definitely for sure has the capability to go 7. Personally, don't want it to go 7 because in the Chase Center Game 7, win or go home, that just sounds like a cardiac arrest. So, moving on to the Eastern Conference, the last two series we have to talk about. The Sixers and the Celtics. This series currently knotted at 1 game apiece. Joel Embiid missed game 1. We got a little blast from the past from James Harden, dropping 45 in the game-winning 3, and frankly upsetting the Boston Celtics for a game. You don't have the MVP, and you just were not able to contain James Harden at all. And game 2, James Harden went back to his old pedestrian self. He shot pretty awful. Just frankly, nobody from Philly showed up in game 2, and Boston just kind of coasted to a win. And you were able to win with Jason Tatum putting up a stinker. So again, even though Philly took game 1, I still have Boston taking this series. Unless we get a consistent James Harden, just 30 pieces through the rest of the series. And obviously, you don't have Joel Embiid 100%, so that's a big factor as well. So, even though it was really nice to see James Harden putting up 45 in game 1, it's just realistically not sustainable. And just Boston, you had guys pick up the slack. Jaylen Brown leading the way with 25. You had Derek White with 15, Marcus Smart with 15, Brogdon with 23. Grant Williams even got some run. He chipped in 12. So overall, I'm not scared for Boston in this series. I think worst case scenario, they'll be able to handle it in 6. I just think Philly just doesn't have the firepower to keep up with Boston. So not too much to take from this series. Again, it was nice to see Harden kind of give us that virtuoso experience in game 1, but I would like to see him shoot a little better than 2 for 14. I know heading into this series, I wanted him to be more effective and aggressive. I got in game 1, not so much in game 2. So we'll see if he's able to kind of stabilize it moving forward. But overall, just with Joel being not 100% with that LCL sprain, I think they called it, and just James Harden being who he is at this stage in his career, I just think it's Boston's series to lose at this point.
Yeah, I think everyone just needs to get used to saying Boston or just anticipate Boston in the finals. That's going to happen. With Milwaukee getting eliminated, I just don't see a universe where another East team is in the finals. Definitely sucks, but I just, like all year, it's just, I love this. I've said it multiple times. I love the Philly team, but they're just not geared up to beat the Celtics team. It was really cool, though, to see Harden kind of turn back the years. I think everyone loved the way that Harden played a couple years ago. It was just fun to watch. It was entertaining. And the way that he would go against that Warriors team was just very exciting, just to kind of see and just kind of live through. But now we are not getting that Harden. And frankly, it's just, I don't think much is going to change. I think this tonight, or I think it was tonight or 2 nights ago, the big blowout is just kind of what's going to happen. I think the rest of the series, I personally think I originally thought it was going to be Celtics in 5, but Philly did steal game 1, so it's most likely going to be Celtics in 6. But nothing really more to say about this series. Nothing too crazy. Nothing that's really surprised me besides that Harden performance.
And then the series we all expected to have at this point, the Heat and the Knicks. Miami Heat were able to just put up a very good second half in game 1 and be able to steal one in MSG. The Knicks offense just was not there. And then Jimmy Butler unfortunately turned his ankle, sat out game 2, and I would assume he's probably going to at least try to play game 3. But in game 2, without Jimmy, you kind of expect the Knicks to handle business at the end. They ultimately did, but it was not pretty by any means. The Heat were definitely hanging around in this game, probably a little longer than you'd like if you're a Knicks fan. But if you're the Heat, you're definitely in this series. You definitely have a really good chance to win this series. Um, and I think it ultimately depends on how healthy is Jimmy Butler. If you're able to still be able to get really huge performances, and not like 56-point performances, but like a solid 25 to 30 consistently, that will be huge for them moving forward. But you definitely saw some things from Caleb Martin. He had a legacy game. Gabe Vincent's been solid through the first 2 games. Max Strus kind of finding his groove again. And yeah, for the Knicks, Julius Randle slowly starting to find his groove as well. Jalen Brunson, after having a pretty bad game 1, he rebounded. So, and RJ Barrett, he's been pretty good as well, playing at home. So, definitely going to be a back and forth series. I honestly don't even know who I have in this series, but personally, I want to see the Heat win just due to what they did in round 1. And just to have an 8 seed in the Eastern Conference Finals would be kind of insane. Don't know if that's ever happened before, but if it were to happen, I'm sure we'll hear all the stats about it. But yeah, for the rest of the series, I'm just hoping Jimmy Butler plays and he's at least somewhat healthy and able to help the Heat in a positive way. So overall, this is one of the more intriguing series, maybe one to some, but yeah, I think this whole series just kind of depends on Jimmy Butler, and hopefully he's able to give it a go for the rest of the way. But yeah, this is definitely going to be a very competitive and defensive oriented series, and personally, I'm all here for it.
This Heat team has been very weird. Like they just flipped a switch in the postseason here. Like guys like Caleb Martin, um, Gabe Vincent, and even Struess and even Duncan Robinson too. He hit 3 threes. Whenever I forgot what they played. Like 2 nights ago. But they're all kind of like finding their stride here in the postseason, and it's just kind of the Heat that I feel like people expected going into the season. Obviously, this team was really good last year, and now this year kind of slipping and getting that 8 seed. But I think if Jimmy comes back, I think it's really hard to predict this series. But I think we're going probably series tied 2-2 going back into New York for Game 5. I think that's the most realistic thing that happens. But Brunson dropping 30 was pretty huge, I think. If RJ Barrett can kind of continue playing like he is, I think this Knicks team is going to be very hard to beat. But it's just the inconsistency too with the Knicks team as well. Like RJ Barrett, sadly, won't give you 24 every night. Julius, we've seen his playoff struggles, but I think players like Quickly and Obi Toppin could definitely kind of pick up that slack a little bit sometimes. Even Josh Hart too. He's been really good so far. So this series, I hope goes 7 because I think this is the most entertaining series, if not besides the Lakers and Warriors series. I think that this series is probably the most entertaining for me so far. And man, I just want to see how this plays out. I hope Jimmy is fine going into these next couple games. I know he's going to play through his injury, but who knows how much that's really affecting him. But if the Heat win, man, that would be absolutely crazy, dude. Like that would, I don't even know what I would kind of do, but yeah, I think that the series is gonna go 7, and Jimmy just kind of needs to keep playing. It sucks because Jimmy needs to be putting up like 25 to 30 every night to give him a chance. But if these role players keep kind of stepping up for the Heat, Knicks are in trouble.
Alrighty, so it's only a long episode, but we've kind of touched a lot of ground. So second round matchups will continue to chug along. Some housekeeping stuff, just in terms of just scheduling, it'll probably be a little erratic. Heading into summertime, we'll kind of just, I imagine, just film episodes whenever we feel the need to. Because heading out of school, we don't necessarily have a strict schedule to follow. So, sure, we'll update towards the end of the second round and then in the conference finals matchup. So we'll probably sprinkle in episodes every here and there. And then when free agency comes, we'll figure something out there as well. But yeah, for now, we will see you whenever we see you. But yeah, that will do it for this episode of the Basketball Maestros. Thank you for joining us today. Feel free to check us out on all our socials at Instagram. If you're listening from University Pulse, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok as well. All the Basketball Maestros as our handles. So yeah, that will do it for this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.